So I'd like to introduce, we have two boards, some representatives from two boards for this evening. So introduce from the Fox Islands Electric Board, President Patrick Traynor is here. Director Aaron Kavitz and Director Kathy Macy. And Aaron and Kathy are your North Haven directors with Jeff Martin. And each island community elects their own director representation. So there's 3 directors that represent North Haven. And then for Fox Islands Wind, we have a separate board. Our Vice President, Doug Green, is here, and our Secretary Treasurer, Chuck Gathering. Our President, George Kendrick, is on vacation, having a wonderful time. But he will be here at the next meeting, which is going to be August 19th or 20th. So we have our annual meeting here, July 15th at Waterman. And then we'll be back here at the Historical Society in August to really continue this conversation today and hopefully have some more information as we keep working on these projects. New information comes out. So let's get started. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of information tonight. So if at any time you have questions, we can just make this more of a discussion. And I will try not to block the screen the whole time. I was looking at that and thinking, I'm sure I'm going to be like right in the middle half the time. My apologies.
Can you lower the lights?
So I don't know. I'm going to try to. I'm just going to try. Oh, maybe.
There you go.
Is that a little better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want maybe some of them on? It's good. Is that good? Okay. Half and half. So tonight we're going to, I already did some introductions. We're going to talk about the Fox Islands Electric business structure and the initiatives that Fox Islands Electric is doing in North Haven. Then we're going to shift over and mostly talk about Fox Islands Wind, the business structure, recent changes, the historical performance of our wind farm, the costs, and then bring it back to Fox Islands Electric and talk about our energy demand and really our future generation options and what we're looking at going forward. And I forgot my clicky thing at the office. I'm sorry. Just going to run back and forth. So Fox Islands Electric was incorporated in 1975. There was a little bit of discussion early on about where was North Haven in that, and if North Haven received power from Vinyl Haven before that time, from the Vinyl Haven coal plants. We're not really sure whether we became Fox Islands Electric together in 1975 or if the service was already connected before that. So I'm going to find out. We are a consumer-owned, nonprofit, 501c12 rural electric utility. So Fox Islands Electric is fully owned by its members. So if you have an account with the electric company, you're a member owner. It's governed by an elected board of 9 directors who also are required to be consumer owners. So they're required to have accounts so we have only local representation. There are 3 sources of energy to Fox Island customers. Fox Islands Wind, the wind farm, diesel generator that is on Vinyl Haven, and then the rest of our energy comes from the ISO New England market. And that's delivered with our 35 kV line that comes from Glen Cove on the mainland all the way to North Haven, and then over to Vinyl Haven, and then the distribution where you receive the power for delivery comes back. So we have 2 cables that we're going to be talking about tonight underneath the thoroughfare. So our goal, and this is the goal of Fox Islands Electric and Fox Islands Wind as a whole, is to deliver reliable, affordable, sustainable energy. And all 3 of those are important. Reliability for me is the pinnacle of these 3. Reliable power, being able to consistently expect that you're going to have power, be able to plan your day, be able to conduct business in the modern world, have telecommunications available, all of that for even heating and cooling and everything that we depend on electricity for in our lives, have a reliable source delivered to our customers. After that, it needs to be affordable, and we want it to be sustainable as possible. And those 2 are constantly sometimes even at odds with each other, but constantly trying to keep a balance. So in North Haven, Fox Island Electric has been doing quite a bit of work, actually. There is a 10-pole relocation on Iron Point Road, sorry, not relocation, replacement. Iron Point Road has been quite beat up by the storms, as has Factory Point and West District Road. So those are 3 areas, just 3. We know there's more out there, but those are the 3 priorities for this year that we need to get rebuilt. And when we rebuild them, we're also hardening them to make sure that they're a little stronger against the storms. We've had quite a few issues on North Shore Road as well. That one is coming up in the near future to handle it. We've done a lot of tree trimming, vegetation management out there. I think that's actually jumping down the bottom, but the vegetation and right-of-way clearing has really helped with our outage numbers, but there's so much to do. So we are spacing it out over the course of 8 years to get our entire system cleared. And I know that seems like a long time, but within our budget, it's really the best that we can do. But we have hired some local crews. I have my guys doing it. We've hired some contractors from mainland that have brought in specialized equipment for some tricky areas to get this done and to get it done faster than we were doing it before. And I probably shouldn't say it that way because we weren't doing it before. There were a couple of decades in the history of our company that we really weren't doing line clearing. So there is a lot to catch up on. We feel like once we get through the whole system as a whole, we'll be able to keep up with those segments and probably narrow it down to a 5-year cycle. Every 5 years, everything gets trimmed or at least looked at to see if it needs to get trimmed in our whole system. But until we can get everything, all the problem areas taken care of and the whole system done at least once, we really can't afford to get to that place yet. But we are making quite a bit of accomplishment, I guess, quite a bit of progress on that, just taking a little time. And then storm preparation and restoration. I've watched our weather pretty closely and I work with Lauren to predict what's going to happen the best we can. And actually, out of my whole staff, Lauren is the one, he knows what the weather is going to do. It's almost like he knows these islands so well that he can tell me if the storm is going to miss us, if we're going to have damage, or if it's going to be pretty much nothing. And so far, we've been 100% correct. So we work together pretty closely to prepare for storms. Because when the storm starts, it's very difficult to get a crew up here. So I've been sending crews over here the night before. Sometimes they're here several days to repair the damage. Sometimes they have to go home and get a night's sleep before they can keep going. We've had some storms that have lasted quite a while before storm damage. Before we're able to repair all the storm damage. There's approximately 8 full replacements that we've had this year alone from just storm breaks. So our crew, when you're looking at our rate, our transmission, our delivery rate, that's how we pay for our crew and pay for our overhead. It is expensive. It's expensive to run an island system with only 2,100 customers. 2,100 customers have to pay for the whole system. But when you really look at how our crew responds to damages and works with our towns and how our outage hours are so much less than that of the mainland, that's where you get the benefit of having an on-site crew and having a company that's providing it. If we were connected to CMP and we had to wait for them, first of all, we'd have to wait until the storm died down so that we could get ferries out here. It come out, assess, and decide. By the time that we're a small, populated area, by the time they came out here to really address our issues, it would be quite a few days after we already have it back up and running. We do not have the cheapest rate, but we do have the best crew. And it's a worthy investment. I think I'm going to pitch that today. We're going to talk a lot about energy rates, but on the delivery side, it's a worthy investment to have a local company that's responsive this way. And I can't brag enough about the amazing crew that I have. Last year, we completed our metering system upgrade. This upgrade was to inline type meter. I can mute somebody here.
2, 3, 4. I just made a thumb.
There we go. I was wondering where that sound was coming from. Sounds like someone is grandchildren. Over. The AMI system, it pings 6 times a day, and it's like a second ping, so it's not a constant signal in your house. And it records all the data, demand data. It's going to allow us to do time of use rates, peak shifting rates, different things like that, demand rates. The technology that is on this also allows us to know what our system's demand is at any one time by the router data. The router, I don't know if you've noticed those white boxes that are up on our poles. We have quite a few routers around the island that collect the information, and I can tell at any one time how much energy is going through those, through our gateways to the routers, so that we can plan for when we need the electricity. We can plan for peaks. We can also meter based on use shifting, because it's much cheaper to do your laundry in the morning than it is from 5 to 9 o'clock at night, because this one power is most expensive. So we now have just the basic tools that we need to do some of these more modernization of our utility system, more modern ways of working with our customers and giving you options. This next several years, we're going to be looking at replacing both thoroughfare cables. So the first one is our 1247 distribution cable. And this one comes from our substation, a feeder out underneath to Ames Point. And Ames Point in the storms recently have become an island. It's become an island. And if I can't safely get a crew out there, and that riser pole has issues and the power is down from there, I'm not going to have the crew go out there until it's safe. I'm not going to have them trying to wade or swim out there. So they have to wait until the tide goes down and the water recedes before they can get out there and address issues. That's which means the whole island is off until we can get there. So this was done because it is the shortest distance from our riser cable on ground cable, so therefore it's the cheapest way to do it. But the line is not protected, and it's becoming an issue to get out there when we need to switch between the islands, when we have an issue with any of those poles. We did have an issue on that line, I believe, in January, and we were able to get out there. It's a 4-aught cable, so we only need 3 to serve the island, and we had to disconnect one and put another one in service to get the whole island back up again. But getting out there when it's windy and stormy, even if it's not underwater, it's just not very safe. What I would like to do, working with our engineer, we have identified a couple different spots. My preferred spot is somewhere in Browns Cove. So there's a blue star there. In Browns Cove, it is just enough protected. It's accessible from the road. Out this one, the road is quite a distance from the pole. You have to hike in, and it's real swampy. You can't bring a truck out there. So it's hard if you need equipment or materials. You have to hike back out to the road and see if you can get stuff across. So I am going to be talking to landowners. I don't know if there's a landowner tonight that owns property in there. Or if you know people that do. But there is a spot that is real close to the road that would be accessible, that we already have a pole there. So it'd be very minimal changes to bring a new cord up through a cable up through the embankment. You wouldn't even see that it's there after construction was over and we reclaimed the section. But we could also access it really easily with our trucks. So that would take one big reliability factor off the table for North Haven. I have looked at different grants for that project. It is probably about a $1.5 million project, but leaving it where it is more than a $1.5 million disaster. So that is one of my priority projects for North Haven. That pole alone is the only place that we bring service to the island. So it's really vitally important that we have it in a place that's accessible, that's protected, and that my crew can safely repair it if needed to. We will put in a brand new 4-aught cable too, so that we have a redundant system, which would be wonderful. This is what the pole looks like right now, or it did a couple months ago when we took a picture of it. You can see the water line where it routinely comes up. And then those of you that were here during the flooding this spring and just the disaster that was, you know how far up Megan could go. And I don't know if that tree has been moved out of the way yet, but it's just a really hard place to get to. And that is the power source to the island. So this is something we're working on repairing. The next one, let me see if I can get this to go up. There is a question here. Oh, not a question, just a comment about muting. The 35 kV transmission cable replacement, this is where we get, our cable comes from Glen Cove on the mainland and it comes into North Haven. There's a vaulted box pretty close to Narrow Lake Beach. And then the line goes over to Final Haven. Without this line, nobody gets power. Nobody gets power because our wind turbines will not run without a consistent source of power. And that is the transmission line. When we lose the transmission line to the mainland, we lose all capability to use our wind farm. The turbines are not asynchronous. They can't run on their own. GE turbines can't do that. Vestas turbines can, and that will come up later in our discussion. But we would have to completely repower to get different turbines that could do that. So when we lose this line, we lose our whole system. On May 10th, we had an outage on a beautiful summer day, beautiful sunny day, spring day, and it was because this cable had a fault in it. We're able to find the fault and switch over to another leg of the cable and get the system running back up again. But this cable was not replaced at the same time the rest of it was to the mainland in 2005. So this is actually a 1976 cable between the islands. I'm not sure, other than there were cost overruns and difficulties why they didn't replace the segment between the islands. It's been very difficult to find the cable because it is a special run transmission cable that also has fiber in it. North Haven has developed a lot of its fiber based on Foxconn electric fiber that comes from the mainland. We do need to pull the other half of that over to Final Haven. But the problem is to do a short run cable, which is about this thick, with all that in it, for just a little over a mile, is prohibitively expensive. So I've been talking with manufacturers, other utilities to try to find another project that we can piggyback on. If we can find a company that's already manufacturing something similar for another utility, we can get them to run an extra mile and buy it. There is one, maybe they're sending me the specifications next week, that might be manufacturing right now, but if not, what we're gonna need to do is run the 4 wires separately and just not have them put together, because then our lead time and our costs will be a lot. It'd be a lot quicker to get it. It's still about 18 months wait. But this cable, these 2 cables between the islands really need to be replaced. And that has nothing to do really with any of the great hot topics where there's a lot of money, grant money available with renewable energy. But our lifeline, these cables are really our lifeline. So developing a small grid that allows us some redundancy to deal with cable faults is really important.
Just out of curiosity, how are the cables protected under the water?
The transmission cable, the 35 kV to the mainland, is actually buried 6 feet.
Oh.
which is wonderful because it's protected. Terrible if we ever had a fault on it, because you would have to repair it underwater. You'd have to vault it and repair it. The one between the islands, which is on Ames Point in the prior map, is in a specifically rocky area that there are signs, or there were signs at one time, but people don't really anchor there. But it's also that area, the insulation on the cable has been worn out over the years because it's been chafing on those rocks. So when we replace that, we need to bind it, put it in some sediment in kind of a muddier area. So part of the relocation is getting it away from those and burying it properly.
Were they able to splice a new piece in the fall? Still running on the spec?
We are still running on the spare. I did get the quote for the splice. To splice and fix it, the old cable, which is the same cable, it was about $50,000 to $60,000 ago. That was pre-2005. The quote that I'll be giving to the board on Thursday nights, it's like $250,000 to $300,000 to repair it. But we might have to, if I can't get the cable to replace this, we need a little more life out of it. So
Because
we
we're
might have to
running like
replace it.
waiting for prayer right
Yeah,
now on a spare cable.
we are. I do have a backup plan. It's not a great one, but it would probably work if we had to, but it's expensive. You don't want to waste money when you have to replace it anyway. But we're gonna have to spend some money to prolong the life of it and insulate it as best we can until we can replace it. So that's why we might not wait to get the nice cable manufactured exactly how we want it. We might just have to kind of do it ad hoc through the thoroughfare. But that also means that the life of it is not going to be, it's not going to be a 40-year cable life. Because it's not going to be manufactured with all the installations of the original one. But that might not be so bad. It'll have a shorter lifespan. So, but when we go to replace the ones to the mainland, it'll probably match up. It will be fully depreciated, ready to get replaced about the same time the other cable will. So it might not be such bad results. But I'm also not quite convinced that that's the right way to go. I need some more information. All of these challenges, I tend to think that we, having worked in a big utility, I think we have big utility problems, but we have small utility resources. So always finding the right way to do it and get kind of creative sometimes is kind of a skill that we all employ. So shifting over a little bit to Fox Islands Wind. So how does Fox Islands Wind fit into this picture? It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Fox Islands Electric. It's a 4.5 megawatt generation project, 3 turbines, commercially operational in December of 2009. It was built in partnership with Diversified Communications, which is a tax equity partner. They really were a silent partner, but they provided the investments, and then they received their money back in tax credit, which today with the Investment Reduction Act, we can actually have direct pay tax credit. So we don't need a tax equity partner anymore. We can just get a refund from the IRS for that tax credit, even though we're tax exempt. It's really, really wonderful. In 2014, Fox Islands Electric purchased the remaining shares that became a wholly owned subsidiary in 2015. Also in 2015, the noise litigation ended. If you were here for that, you know that Fox Islands Wind was sued, and then the regulatory agencies, the Department of Environmental Protection was also sued for issuing the permit. So we do operate according to noise reduction operations from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. daily. We curtail about a third, and it goes down to 40 decibels at the nearest occupied place, 39 or less at every other protected site. And we are still monitoring the sound today to make sure that we comply with those permit requirements. The main Department of Environmental Protection standard is 42 decibels at nighttime, is the nearest standard. So that is the standard that we will be looking at for the future.
What constitutes a protected zone, or what was the term?
It's a protected site.
Yeah.
It is a formula around, our site, the DEP decided it was turbine 2. So it's circumference around turbine 2. Because turbine 1 and 3 are set back from any other, houses, so it's so many feet. from
So
there.
it's essentially residential.
So Fox Island Winds, Fox Island Electric decided, early in my tenure, we were talking about how it was managed, what we were doing with it. And the Fox Island Electric Board of Directors decided in 2021 that we need to make some structural changes. They adopted bylaws that required the directors to be members of Fox Island Electric, so that local control and decisions were being made for that company as well. There's a wholly owned subsidiary, it should be locally governed and managed as well. They adopted new bylaws, and then through a recruitment process, appointed 3 directors. Doug and Tucker are here today. There are 3 directors on the Fox Island Planning Board of Directors. And then the new board took their positions in January 2023, and I was appointed as the CEO of that company, replacing George Baker. So it's all local control for this company now. In March 2023, Fox Island Electric purchased the Fox Island Wind site property. There are 4 properties that are part of the footprint of this site: the Amazides Way and Zion Farm. Fox Island Electric now leases them back to Fox Island Wind at just the cost of principal and interest. This saves us over $30,000 a year. The leases that we had escalated each year based on inflation, based on the CPI. So actually over the life of the project, the remaining life of the project, we're saving about $1.2 million just on property lease costs. So with this and with the restructuring, there are no more financial ownership interests in Fox Island Wind, except for Fox Island Electric and its members. So it really is a local project with local oversight and management. And that's a really good place to start moving towards the future, because nobody's making money on these decisions that we're going to be making as a community. The community has taken the risk with this project. The community gets the benefits, but also the disadvantages of the project. But all of the benefits that come they're not scattered around other places in the state local. So I think that's a really good way to look at the project now. It's ours. So the Fox Island Wind Board, their governing principles really are the same as Fox Island Electric now. It's not to make more money personally off the project or for a different company off the project. It's to deliver reliable, affordable, sustainable energy to our communities. The Fox Island Wind Board has been determining and working to figure out how the Fox Island Wind project has worked or not worked for the community, make recommendations to address business challenges, engaging the community discussions, which this meeting is part of those discussions, and evaluate the Fox Island Wind project for its performance, for its costs, A to Z, look at our options, how we want to manage this. The Fox Island Electric Board is still the one that has governance. They're the democratically elected directors. They're the ones that make the decisions, as well as the main public utilities commission. So Fox Island Wind performance. The wind farm was built to supply 100% of the island's energy needs. And actually, it did fairly well until 2019. You see there's a dip in 2012. That was the first gearbox failure of turbine 3. And that was still under warranty. So even though that was a major, equipment break, it was under warranty. In 2019, turbine 3 suffered another gearbox failure. That was not within warranty. So we did have an insurance claim on that, but it didn't really cover, all of the damages. Since then, what we're seeing is that these are just, they're machines. They need to be maintained. They need to be, their parts need to be changed out. This last year, I waited, finally got yaw cups. I had ordered them 18 months before then, but with supply chain issues, we couldn't get them. By the time we had them, yaw cups are an important part of the yaw motor system, and they kind of work like brake pads in a way. They had almost like warped into the machine, and it was very difficult to get them out. So what I really found when I first got here is that we haven't been managing these turbines the way we've been managing our fleet trucks, for example. Making sure that we're changing the oil or making sure we're replacing parts and keeping them in good condition. We've been relying on GE to do the maintenance and operation for us, and they were coming out twice a year, and that was it. And they didn't do an end of warranty inspection. They didn't do top to bottom inspections each year. We had a lot of issues that we weren't really aware of. And the turbines, unfortunately, have have worn out. So in 2022 and 2023, we've done a lot of maintenance and repair work. We are on track in 2024 to do better with the turbines, and we're also looking at curtailment and operations and a way to get more energy out of our turbine. But 2023, I'm hoping, is the worst performance year that we'll have in the turbine. It was a big wake-up call in some respects. We had started the year before, but it had been almost a decade of very minimal maintenance. And it really took a toll on the equipment and the turbines. So the new board of directors, this is something that they've been really working on. I've been working on to address it and get it repaired. Regardless though, people have been asking about, well, what are our power costs and how have they been affected? And we feel like our rates have gone up so much and power is so expensive. Well, we did an analysis of if the red line is if we just bought 100% of our power from the energy market on maintenance. The green line is what our actual energy costs were by buying power from the mainland for backup and having costs out of the wind and the diesel generator occasionally. So you can see early on in the project in 2010 and 11, there was a sharp increase, and then it goes back down in 2015 and 16. That increase was only litigation attorney fees. That's all that affected that. That was not related to the turbines themselves, that was just litigation. So then we see until 2019 with the gearbox failure, and then the equipment failures and the different maintenance issues that we've had, that's when the costs went up dramatically. But that's also when the cost of natural gas went up dramatically. So who would have known that our costs were going to track so closely to the ISO New England market costs? Well, the ISO New England market costs skyrocketed with natural gas and then came right back down, and now they're normalizing up in 2024. And I think actually they're going to be closer to the 15-cent range when we get to the end of the year. That's where they're going to be. And our prices are starting to come down as well. So we might actually be close to about the same costs by the end of the year. But overall, if we hadn't had 2023, we'd be about $2 million ahead. But 2023 happens with equipment breakdown, issues that we've had to address. So we've saved about $280,000 by having the wind turbines versus not having the wind turbines. That is really close. Kind of a toss-up, but it shows me that if we can manage the wind turbines to get the most out of them, we have a really good opportunity of normalizing and saving on energy costs from the mainland. Energy costs from the mainland are determined primarily on the market cost, but also transmission. What does it cost to get it out to the island? We lose about 6% of our power over the transmission cable. So when I sell extra wind power, I lose 6% of it going that way. And then when I replace it, oftentimes in peak power time, I have to buy 106% of what we need because we're losing so much over that transmission cable. So if we can generate costs or generate on islands and prevent some of those line losses, but also take advantage of on-site generation, we do have the foundation for lowering power costs. If we look at our megawatt hour generation and our energy costs, they are completely inverse of each other. So the more generation that Fox Islands wind produces, the less it costs. You have those fixed costs that are spread out over more kWh. So if we can get it generating, the cost actually lowers it, lowers our overall energy costs. With the mainland, it doesn't really work that way because the mainland is a conglomeration of a lot of different generators. So maintenance and timely repairs are crucial to getting the most out of this investment. This is a $14.5 million investment. We will not be through paying for it until December 2029. We need to get the most that we can out of the current turbines that we have. And we need to do that through really timely repairs, get them working and generating. So Fox Island's energy cost is determined not just by the megawatt hour generation, but also the time that it's generated. Fox Island's wind, Fox Island's electric has all the risk for that project. Our members have all the risk. Whether it generates nothing or it generates 12,000 megawatt hours, we have to pay for the fixed cost of that system. We have to pay for it. So when it's generating, it's really beneficial for the community. So we have to pay for it either way. So it's a fixed cost. It's about 9 cents a kilowatt hour. When it generates overnight and I don't have an electric load to deliver that power to, I have to sell it to the market at a loss. And then we have this wonderful evening period on the islands where the wind dies down and we just from 5 to like 8 o'clock at night, it's just beautiful with just a little breeze. That's when I need energy the most. And that's when Fox Island's wind is usually not generating. So that's when we're buying backup power and that usually today is between 15 and 20 cents a kilowatt hour. It's been highly expensive in New England, especially with the heat waves. So it's variable, flexible, but it is the building block to meet our future demands. So this is our demands. You can see by month. January and December tend to be really high for heating costs. And then we have our shoulder months in April, September, and October where the use goes down a little bit. And then June, July, August, the first part of September, we have our peak of the year. And this is because we have a lot more residents here. We have a lot of tourism, we have our summer residents are here, and we use a lot more energy during those months. So this is what we're planning for. This red line is the wind generation. In some ways, it's kind of opposite of our load. So in the summer months, June, July, August, our wind is pretty dismal. We have beautiful island weather, but we don't have a lot of winds. In the winter time, we have a lot of winds, but we don't have the load to use that power. So we sell a lot of excess power to the markets. So there is a bit of a mismatch there, although the shoulder months line up perfectly. You can also look back on your bills and see in September, October, and maybe April, May, our power costs tend to be a little lower. It's because it's a good matchup with wind and what we need. Looking forward to 2034, we're looking at probably about a 1% annual increase to our energy use. So we're planning to, when we're looking out for about 12,000 megawatt hours a year that we're going to need to produce or purchase to meet our load. So if you look at this right now, this is our projected demand in 2034 and our average wind generation. And again, there is that mismatch between our low, I think earlier I said the red was wind, that was a misstep, sorry. The red is our low, the blue is the wind. You can see how it dips down in June, July, and August, and our peak is going to be even higher. So there's even more of a demand that we're going to have to fill. So when we look at that demand and filling it, we need to start first with the wind farm. It's our biggest resource, it's our biggest asset, it's our biggest investment. And this is a community decision on what we want to do going forward. The turbines are going to be 15 years old this December, operating 15 years. The turbine equipment is more like 18 years old. So with a approximately 16 to 20 year lifetime for the turbines, something is going to need to be done in the near future about the wind turbine site. We've identified 3 different options that are viable for this community. A complete repowering, a partial repowering, or a complete decommissioning. These are the 3 possible ways we could go. So a complete repowering is basically replacing everything. We might be able to use our towers again, but other than that, taking all of the turbines down and putting up a different turbine. If we did a complete repowering, it would probably be going with Vestas, which is the other main turbine manufacturer. Now, Vestas does have synchronous generation, so we could possibly decouple those from the transmission line and still use them when we didn't have access to the transmission line. Potentially increase our output to 2 megawatts a turbine, which would be a 6 megawatt hour or megawatt site or more. This would involve looking at our foundation suitability. It requires re-permitting. We would be recycling the old blades, selling them for scrap, whatever was the best way to go with facilities. So it'd be complete removal of what we have now. And well, here's all the steps that we need to take. With the original project, some of these weren't really done to the depth that we would do them today. And a lot of that is because the laws weren't in place yet in Maine on how to do a wind project and what needs to be done. But we will go through all these steps. Regardless of what we're going to do, we want to make sure that we're looking at specifically the sound impact on our community. Someone did ask on a prior presentation about the avian studies. Most of the birds over there are actually not in that area. It's a high crop, outcrop. They're all down near the water where the food sources are. We hardly have any birds in that area. So it's really not an issue, which is wonderful. We're one of the few sites that is not really an issue, but we would redo that study. All of these, the pre-construction surveys, studies, permitting, engineering, the turbine equipment, construction, decommissioning, recycling, monitoring, all those costs, minus the 30% of what items we could get a tax credit on, tax rebate. The net cost of this is probably about $11 million. So we would also be looking at grants and low interest loan possibilities, but about 11 million. So the pros on this would allow us to shift to a different turbine manufacturer. We would be able to increase the power output, which we need in the future. And it would extend the life of the wind project for another 20 to 25 years. It would keep local control again. We have increased reliability. The cons, we can't use anything that we've already invested in. And it would be a longer construction time, we'd have completely new facilities. This really is our most expensive rate option. It is starting over completely. This would put us on the same financial footing as a lot of those new projects that are starting on the mainland or offshore that haven't built anything yet. We'd be starting over. The only thing that we would still have is the sites, because Fox Island Electric purchased that site, so we would have the property that we needed to do new projects. Our rates would probably be similar to the existing projects, depending on, what our interest rates were for the loan, what we could get.
Do we have a bond rating?
We don't. And we're probably too small to have one.
So do we know if we're a good credit risk, perceived as a good credit risk?
We are by the Rural Utility Service. So we get all of our funding through two sources. The USDA, Rural Utility Services, which is the government, and we get the federal financing bank rate, which is usually lower. And the National Rural Utilities Cooperative Finance Corporation, CFC for short. And that is a cooperative banking association that started to be a bank for cooperatives. So they have patronage capital, they're nonprofits. So we do have lines of credit with them. And we also are going to be looking at getting a line of credit with CoBank, which is also a cooperative financing and banking institution. So we have enough credit out there. Under our existing mortgage, we have about $7 million in loans, but we have a $25 million line. So we can do some capital borrowing. Probably not to the extent of everything that we want to do, but we probably could do quite a bit. We also need to make sure that we keep our rate in line so that the interest in those loans don't throw the balance sheet off to a point where we threaten our tax exempt capability, or our financial covenant ratios are not high enough. All of that needs to stay in the proper ratios, but that's probably too much in the weeds. Sorry, I love the weeds. I feel like I live my life in the weeds. So you can just be like, okay, back up a little bit.
There are a lot of rural co-ops in the Midwest, aren't there? I mean, there's a big pool in this country of rural co-ops.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and this was started under FDR. It was one of the New Deal programs to get electricity to rural areas, knowing that rural areas really didn't have the business for a lot of these investor-owned utilities to serve. And we still don't. We're still a rural area that, CMP and Versant would look at us and we're not economically viable really to add to their plate. And if they did, they wouldn't provide us the service that we provide because it's just too expensive to do that. So it's definitely a cost living on the islands. Wind power option number 2, this is partial repowering. So what we would do is we just replace the guts of the turbine. In the nacelles, the boxes at the top, the rectangular boxes at the top, we would take out the generators, the gearboxes, and we would take out the rotors and the blades, and we would just replace the equipment that has worn out. The existing towers and foundations would stay in place. We would have an opportunity to increase our efficiency and output, because on our towers, we can go from 77-foot blades to 96-foot blades, which would give us more megawatt hours. Between the 3 of them, it's almost a whole nother tower generation with what we already have. Now, we do have to do sound studies to figure out if that's viable. We're really analyzing to see how we could do this. But with just repowering with our existing area, we think that we can get the generation of a whole extra turbine, which will need that extra generation for the future. The nacelles are insulated now. There's fewer moving parts. They're quieter blades. There's a lot of technology that's occurred since essentially 2004 to 2006, which is what our models are. They're from that 2004 to 2006 technology. So there's a lot more technology now that's responsive to noise issues. It's responsive to generation more aerodynamically, aerodynamically designed. Get that word out. Oh, thank you. And again, we would recycle, again. So this is what we would be doing. You're replacing not your foundation or anything like that. It's mostly in the nacelle, the hub, and the blade. So I have this great video that demonstrates pretty much what it looks like. You're just taking the hub off of it. You are pulling up new equipment to put inside the nacelle at the top. And we'd be taking those old blades off and putting a new unit up. It actually only takes about a day to do each one. And what is really interesting is they just developed this new crane that, see this thing. That actually gets constructed on top of your nacelle. And so you don't even have to bring a crane over on the barge anymore. You construct the crane on top of it and lift the blade and the rotor up from the crane on top of the tower. It's just incredible, the new technology and tools that are available to serve the wind industry that weren't there in the early 2000s. When we did our original project, we just didn't have this technology. It wasn't available. There's huge advancements in the industry since then. So this is about a 3 to 4 year project. We do have to do, again, foundation analysis, or new sound studies. Specifically, we're going to go a little higher. New engineering, construction. We also have to do decommissioning of our old and put up the new. So a partial repowering with all of these costs and the elective pay credit, which is the tax credit, it's about a $6 million project. A $6 million project to get almost 6 megawatts of wind generation, because we're going to have the extra amount there. This is from 14.5 million, just a part, like a third, do math in my head, of the original cost of the project. What this does is it takes advantage of the investment that we've already made in these turbines, and it gives us another 20 to 25 years. And with that 20 to 25 years, if the community decides that to do a partial repowering, we're going to have maintenance schedules. We're going to have eyes and ears on these turbines, and we are going to treat them so well. We're going to really have to do maintenance schedules, operations, and make sure that they continue humming in a way that they should for many, many years. Mars Hill, which is a project in Maine, has not lost much of its efficiency at all since they put them in, and it's about the same age as our project. And it's because of the maintenance and the inspection and the care that they give those turbines. It's the same thing of like driving a car. If you take care of your car, you replace it, you fix parts as it goes, you don't run it without oil, that can last you quite a long time. If you just don't do anything with that car, you're gonna run it into the ground. It's the same concept, yeah.
Are those maintenance tasks that our staff can do, or is that entirely stuff done by GE, or is it a mixture?
It's a mixture of both.
What Amy isn't saying is that, she's really grabbing the bull by the horns. And, these turbines have really struggled the last 2 years, if anybody's paid attention to them. And she has really been fighting with GE tooth and nail to get them. And the reality is that they're probably not the right partner going forward for that type of work. And, we talked about hiring someone, but of course, bringing someone to the island with that expertise is a real challenge or difficulty. But you and George went out to the conference and you identified that there are a lot of contractors who have filled that void, because it's the same void, the other projects have had that same void everywhere, where they haven't had that expertise, yeah.
Well, that's one of the great things about capitalism, is when there's a need and someone figures out they can make money from it, they fill that need. And GE and Vestas are great companies for building arrays, building turbines but they're not great for really keeping them going and doing that maintenance and keeping track of little parts and all of that stuff. They've got big picture development things. They're designing new towers. That's where their strength is. So we met with 3 different vendors who specifically provide operations, maintenance, and monitoring services for small wind turbine sites. This is their sweet spot. And one of them actually has offices in Bangor. They have a crew in Bangor. And they do, like Chuck was saying, they do performance ratings. So in their contract, they have to get the wind turbines reaching a certain performance level, or they don't get part of the payment under the contract. Like they have to reach standards. They have to get your turbines actually generating and performing at the level they should be, or they don't get paid. They have parts warehouse so that they don't have to wait 18 months to get them. And they know which parts need to be replaced every 3 years, every 6 years, every 5 months. Like these little tiny brushes should be replaced every 5 months. And that's what my staff does. There's things my staff can do, but they're also full-time linemen. So it's always trying to figure out how to get that work done and the wind turbines. We need a better partner. As Chuck was saying, we definitely need to look at these opportunities to bring another contractor on. So our contract expires in December. So later this summer into the fall, I'm going to be doing an RFP for wind turbine maintenance companies.
And certainly on Final Haven, people have watched them struggle, and I assume from here too. And of course, there's a strong negative attitude that we're gonna have to overcome if we're gonna pursue repowering in some time, because people say, well, you couldn't keep the old ones running. Why shouldn't we believe you're gonna keep the new ones running? I mean, we're gonna hear that, and we're gonna have to address that.
Are the other companies able to use the towers? Or if we went with another company, they want their own towers?
GE actually patented their process so that you can't use their tower. You can't use their tower. So that is one of the cons. If we repower, we need to go with GE. They're the only ones that will use the towers. We still keep local control. We can get longer blades, increase power outages, our power output, and the rate impact. Actually, this is looking like it's going to be a reduction in power rates. We're going to have more generation. We're going to have less debts. And we're going to have actually less maintenance costs because of the structuring of these new contracts. But I'm hoping we can realize those savings earlier than any kind of repowering decision. We've done several things to streamline costs, such as buying some of our own parts so that we have them, and that reduces outage times with some of the parts. We've gone through every line in the budget with Foxconn plan. What are we spending money on? What should we be spending our money on? What's not really through for us? How do we revamp this company to get the best use out of the ratepayer dollars? So this would be lower capital financing in the term and interest rates. If we were able to get some low interest loans, if we want to fill that grant with the tax credit, it would make it even more affordable. So that is the second option. And this is what meant if we repowered completely or partially, this is what our demand generation profile would look like in 2034, or actually whenever we got the repowering done, even if we did it a little earlier. So you can see that the wind power now is covering pretty much all year except for our summer peaking.
Does the projection take into account like increased heat pump installations and things like that?
It does. The demand does with a 1% increase. We don't really have that many new customers a year, but we are considering, and I didn't really include it too much, Doug gave a great presentation on conservation and energy use and what we're looking at with, EVs, heat pumps. Heat pumps are more of the likelihood in our territory, but just the increased electrification of our society, how much we're relying on energy. So that demand does take that into account. So this is definitely a better picture. So the third option is. Forgot. I have the phone in here, this nice video. Yeah, this is tower decommissioning. We wouldn't be able to do this at all. This is fast and effective. That's correct. So basically, in our site, we don't have that wide open space to be able to do that. We would need to bring in a crane and cut them off, we'd have to dig up the foundation and reclaim the lands and sell the towers as scrap metal, recycle the blades and turbine parts, and we have to revert to purchasing our entire load from the mainland. So the cost to this, and all these costs are conceptual. We're based on what we know now, some of the quotes that we've received, kind of targeting different projects, talking to other projects. None of them are firm signed contractual quotes, but they are good ballpark figures. We've estimated this process of decommissioning would be about $2 million. It would have to come out of rates because you're not going to get a loan or a grant for non-capital work. There's no tax credit for decommissioning. It would, if we were going to go this route, we would keep our turbines running as long as we could past 2029 because we have to pay off our debts. And then we would have to generate enough to put enough money away to do the decommissioning process.
Was there already some money set aside when the project started for decommissioning?
No, should there have been? Yes. But there wasn't. There is a year's worth of interest and loan capital payments in a CD that comes to about, what is this? Actually, don't quote me on that, I can't remember the exact figure, but it's, I think it's about $700,000 that's in a CD that is interest bearing that we had to do to get our loan for security for a loan. So that money, if we didn't need it for that, we could put that towards decommissioning. We also have an O&M maintenance fund that we set aside for large projects and things, equipment breaking, that we could use underneath that we put toward it as well. But we have to come up with about half of it through rates to decommission. Now, going forward though, if we were going to repower, that is one of the things that we'd like to look at as a whole, is incrementally saving decommission costs, because we know those towers can't be repowered again. They have about a 50-year life, and so no matter what happens, if we were going to partially repower, in another 25 years, we need to decide what to do with that site. We're going to have to decommission. So setting aside incremental costs for the whole project through each of those years for those decommissioning costs would be a good idea.
If you did a full repowering with the 50, then you'd go another 50 years.
Yes, yeah, we would. Well, assuming that in 25 years the community wanted, or 20 years wanted to repower. So this is the cheapest option. The site could be reused for a different purpose, or Foxhound Electric might sell it. I don't know, that's a conversation we haven't had. But it is an option. Costs we can't finance, there's no grant. The biggest con is that we lose all control of the power generation of the islands. And we would have to purchase 100% of our power from the mainland with the 6 to 10% line loss in transmission. Those line losses, we have an increased capacity charge from ISO New England all of the charges, if we were gonna use the market system more, all those charges are going to increase. So we also would be subject to price fluctuations, the natural gas markets. We'd probably be buying a lot of first generation project power. So we might be buying a lot of renewables, but we're buying it at the cost for a new wind farm on the mainland, where it's gonna be much higher cost, because ours was a higher cost in the investment initially. So, but we wouldn't have control over that. The market would have control over that, and we would just take power at the cost that the market dictated. We'd have no control over that.
Do you have a modification of option 3 in which you are doing all this, but also coming up with a solar farm or something like that? Have you analyzed that?
Yeah, that's actually next. That's a great segue. And I probably should check, because we need to kind of zoom through. Oh, we have 20 minutes. Forget, it's 21 minutes. So this has a very unknown rate impact, because I don't know what the market's gonna do. The one problem, or the one thing that really came, that was proven by the wind farm, is a way to standardize and regulate our power costs. Yes, our power costs have increased, but we have not had the fluctuations that the mainland has.
And
Doug?
this also has a reliability unknown. If we go totally to the market power, if you look at the grid systems, y'all are reading about it, how AI and data centers are really increasing power demand across the country. And there are some portions of the country that are not going to be able to meet the energy demand. So ISO New England is going to come under pressure as well. So putting aside costs, one of the points that Amy made at the beginning is reliability. When you flip your switch, you want power. And going solely to mainland power puts a bigger question mark around the question of consistent, reliable power versus self-generated power. So that's another variable that we're evaluating.
So additional options are battery storage and utility scale solar. Wind is intermittent. So this is a chart of our wind generation hour by hour. The average. This is January from 2010 to 2023. So January, one of our strongest wind generation months of the year, you can see how much it fluctuates up and down. And a lot of this solid green at the bottom is middle of the night power. So a battery smooths out your system. So what we've been able to do is store and use 100% of our wind generation. So 2023 was a terrible year for wind generation. But in 2023, even with the little wind generation that we had had a $46,715 net loss in power sales, because it was generating when we couldn't use it. So we had to sell it at a loss to replace it with more expensive power from the mainland. We could charge it in the middle of the night with excess wind or the inexpensive market power at off-peak prices. We want to capture that 2-3 cent power that no one else wants, no one else needs to charge the battery. It would decrease our reliance on the transmission line and market power purchases. We'd also decrease our line losses. If we paired it with a diesel generator, which is rated at 1.8 megawatts, we could actually supply both islands consistently during power outages. Right now, our generator is only big enough to supply portions of Final Haven or all of North Haven, both islands together in shoulder months, but only portions the rest of the year. We've had to cycle an hour here, an hour there around the system, because it's just not sized to meet our demand anymore. So we do need more backup generation. That would be another perk of having a battery. And we could possibly integrate community solar for that summer peak use. So this is what, there's a random arrow there. Sorry, there is, oh no, it's not random. It just is clicking wrong. So this is the energy that we sell to the mainland, and at average, we sell energy at about 5 cents a kilowatt hour. That's the extra we can't use. This chart is not the months of the year, this is hours of the day. So when I need the wind, I can't get it, I'm purchasing energy at 17 cents. Well, I just sold it at 5 cents 6 hours earlier. And then the energy, there is a question up here I will get to. Oh, this is a great comment. Canada will also be buying power from us due to their drought impact on the hydro. Yes, there's definitely a northern market. We don't talk about it much in this presentation, but that is part of our analysis. So the energy that's generated from Fox Islands wind is approximately 9 cents a kilowatt hour. So I lose 4 cents selling it plus 6% because of the line loss. And then I lose 17 cents more trying to replace it plus 6% line loss. This is kind of a lose-lose scenario. So what a battery would do is basically what it would do is it would store the energy when we can't use it and just fill in that gap and run during our peak period. So all you're doing is storing the energy you can't use and shifting it where you do need it. So essentially the excess wind generation charges the battery and it stores energy during peak uses. So all of this energy becomes 9 cent energy. You don't, unless some of this blue is charged in the middle of the night with 2 to 5 cent energy, which makes it even cheaper. So you're really just shifting and smoothing out your profile. And most new projects, wind and solar projects, are paired with battery because of this very thing. The Fox Islands Electric Fox Islands wind boards are also looking at possibly doing a large scale solar, possibly community solar, possibly where subscriptions and people can sign up and own or purchase part, invest in it as a community, possibly just with a Fox Islands wind done with a low interest loan or grants. The Vinyl Haven landfill site actually can provide us with about 1.4 megawatts. The capped landfill, there are some issues right now that we need to be done to seal it up a little better before we can do it, but this is one of the sites that we're looking at. I'm also interested in looking at different sites that might be here on North Haven. I know you have a capped landfill here as well. I don't think it's as big, but it might be an option. What we're looking for is not an investor that's going to make money on the land lease deal. What we're looking for is public space that we can mutually benefit from. The landfill at Vinyl Haven, the town's not using this space for anything, and it could be a mutually beneficial use of a capped landfill. So with this, we could capture the most solar energy in the summertime, which is, if you remember, a demand chart when we need that little extra energy for our system. So this is a model on 1.4 megawatt, what it would look like. So this is just the same chart in a different way, but the monthly megawatt hour by the landfill generation. There's comment with solar on posts at the new public safety building and parking lot. There are some different places we can put solar, but what we need is a utility scale solar. A utility scale solar is power that I can dispatch and control from a utility standpoint. The rooftop solar doesn't help me at all because I don't know what's happening in your houses. I don't want to know what's happening in your houses, but it's not something that I can store and dispatch when we need it and levelize their power out. A utility scale, you have it all in one area. It's cost effective. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but you can really use it as a building block of your community energy grid. This is what our power demand versus supply would look like in 2034. Now you see that the solar fills in that gap there. There is still a gap there that we will need to rely in the summertime in those months on mainland power.
This is without the battery.
This, yes, so the battery would redeploy this into the right time of day that we need it, but it wouldn't generate it. So we would still have just this amount of generation, we would need more generation. But also, if you put enough generation to meet your peak period of the year, it's almost too expensive because you don't need that generation the rest of the year. So it would cost you too much for just that little bit of the year. But this seems to be the balance with Levelize, be able to meet most of our power use all year long. We would still be selling in the winter months, buying in the summer months, but with a battery, we can buy cheap. So we could buy when there was extra, like probably in the middle of the night in the summertime, 2, 3 a.m. seems to be where it dips to 1.8 to 2.2 cents. That's when we would be filling that battery. Even though if we didn't have enough generation to fill it during the day, we needed the extra generation. So the battery's not really on here, but it is a piece of it, of working together. So a lot of people have asked me, why can't we just have everyone put rooftop solar up? Wouldn't that just be all the generation that we need? So I'm going to talk about net metering, its impact on Clipchamp Electric, and kind of explain from a utility scale why it's not really beneficial for the utility side of it. And this is controversial, so this is just the facts from a utility standpoint. So with net metering, the homeowner, let's go back to here, the homeowner receives the credit at a fixed price all day long, even though power is not at a fixed price for the utility. The peak and off-peak price differences are not really recognized. So Fox Island Electric loses money on every rooftop solar generation system because they generate the best from 10 to 2. And, but a lot of those, if you don't have a battery to store your own power and deploy it during your peak time, Fox Island Electric is receiving extra energy at 10 to 2 when it doesn't need it and the price is low. So I have to sell it at an even lower price to the mainland because our system can't store it. Battery would help smooth some of that out. But then in the evening when people are using the power, I'm delivering that expensive peak power to them. But so the customer is a one-to-one offset. So they don't see that price difference. The co-op has to take that price difference and spread it out on all the other customers to bill. So the non-solar owning customers make up the difference in the power costs. So this is just a quick study. On February 21st, 2024, this is a really calm day on the system. So on the market between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., when Fox Island Electric generally receives energy from the net metered solar, rooftop solar, it's about $25 to $26. But watching those meters, they were using that energy then at 5 to 8 p.m. And that cost was $41 to $69. So that one day, we lost between 1 and 4 cents a kilowatt hour. So that loss has to be paid by the other customers. It's included in our pot of power costs. Power costs are a pass-through. Whatever they cost us in the month is divided by the kilowatt hours we build, and that's what the customers pay. So we don't make money or lose money any month. It's just an equalized, it equals out. So that loss is paid by other customers. And then, so if we were to compare the bills, a normal residential customer with about 500 kilowatts in use, their delivery charge, transmission, low income assistance program, energy conservation, and energy charge, they have a bill of $175.18. A residential net meter customer, they have the same customer charge, they have the same kilowatt hour use, but they generate 500 kilowatts. But they're not just offsetting their energy charge. They're offsetting the delivery charge which is the money that I use to run the, company. They're offsetting the transmission charge, those transmission costs for those kilowatt hours, both receiving them and selling them, and buying them and delivering them are paid by other customers. They don't, pay anything towards the low income assessment program or the main energy conservation fee, and they don't pay the energy charge. So their total bill is $15 a month. So the net meter customer in this instance has $75.77 in non-energy costs and up to $21.74 in energy costs to other customers. That's just in 1 month in February. So this is a financial difficulty. This is how the state law was set up. This is nobody's fault. This is how the state law was set up to incentivize rooftop solar. The problem is that somebody has to pay these costs. So they get shifted to other customers. Under our current rates, this is the net metered generation. And you can see it definitely peaks in the summertime and in the sun. So people are like, isn't that offset? It's not enough to make a difference in that base load generation that we need because people are using that for their own homes. So it's not to serve the system. There's not enough there. Last year, in 2023, $100,000 was shifted to other customers. Since 2020, we've had a big increase in rooftop solar. There's a lot of reasons for that. The main policy is to have more rooftop solar. Companies come out and they actively advertise for that. It is a cost savings for individual customers. This is behind the scenes what you're not seeing though, and what we need to figure out as a community. My whole margin, the difference between cost and revenue each year is only $125,000. Next year, I have to increase rates probably by about $100,000 because I'm expecting 2024 to even be more of a loss. We've got to make that money up somewhere. I can't run the company with less money, especially in this high inflation period. It costs us about $70 a month just to have a residential meter there. That's their share of everybody's share, every meter's share of the overall expenses. To have the crew, the vehicles, the fuel, the staffing benefits, the insurance, the materials, everything that it takes to run the utility is about $70 a month for every residential customer. If the rates are not high enough to meet those expenses, we default on our loan covenants. We cannot run the business. That is not a position that we want to be in. We need to have a financially sound utility. And this is one of the issues that we need to figure out how to overcome.
What if somebody had a solar array and they went off the grid?
If you went off the grid completely and I wasn't maintaining or responding to storms or anything like that, then that is actually the best case scenario for the utility.
Yeah.
But then that person wouldn't have the backup power if they ever needed it.
Exactly.
So it's almost like the utility provides battery storage services for that customer.
So there's no way of getting around and only giving the solar customers just the energy charge. In other words, they would have to pay for transmission. Is that, or does the state not let you do that?
It's a state law. It's a complete one-to-one offset per state law. A lot of legislators know this is happening and they've looked at these issues and want to figure out a way to go forward without making rooftop solar uneconomical. Like, how do we go forward doing both? An energy only offset would be better for the utility. In fact, I can manage that because with a battery, I can store that energy that's being generated and not used by homeowners and re-deliver it to them. With the loss and delivery fees, I have to raise the rate. I have to recoup that money somehow to run the company. This is This is actually, so when we're looking at solar, this is not, I'm not anti-renewable and I'm not anti-solar. I am pro doing it in a way that is cost effective and beneficial and sustainable for the entire utility. So when I look at rooftop solar, versus, let's see, so the monthly power cost, if we were going to do a solar array on the landfill, so we just modeled the landfill at 1.4 megawatt solar. That is a 7 cent a kilowatt hour system. Rooftop solar is an 18 cent kilowatt hour cost. And that's because part of it is being paid by the homeowner, part of it is being shifted to other customers. So looking at solar, the most economical, beneficial way to do it is to do a large scale utility solar. Rooftop solar and having everyone put it on the rooftop actually would bankrupt the utility and it wouldn't generate enough to provide that load that we need for our customers. So a lot of the discussions next year going forward, we're going to be looking at our rate structure and seeing if there's ways that we can allow people to self-generate, because I want people to be able to, if they want to. If people want to self-generate, having a battery system in your house also helps the grid. So you can store your own power and redeploy it when you need it. We just need to figure out a way where everyone understands that we're member owned and everybody needs to pay for their costs of the system. Because those costs are not going away and we can't shave or reduce those costs. In fact, inflation is even making, poles 47% more expensive than they were just 2 years ago. So how do we handle these rising costs with more and more people putting on solar and avoiding paying the costs of the grid? A lot of solar people don't even know this is happening. So that's why we need to start talking about it as a community. And that's also why I put it in here, because it is, having rooftop solar is actually very beneficial for on a personal basis. So if we can find a way that it works for the co-op and for the members, to me, that would be a win-win. Yeah.
Is it legal or even technologically possible to credit a rooftop solar owner based on the cost of power when they generated it rather than by kilowatt hour, or is that totally?
Right now, that's, theoretically, it is possible to do that. Our new metering system will allow us to do that. For the state of Maine, I don't think so. But
I also, everything you just said about utility scale, I totally agree with it. It makes sense, but I'm just thinking, I personally have it. So I'm just thinking about
how do we solve
what
it?
do you do? Yeah.
Yeah.
California changed their net metering
They did.
arrangement specifically for these issues.
And other states are following. I mean, so the solar companies in California are complaining about it. But because of the net metering impact of non-solar customers in the utility, there are customers actually paying nothing for power in California. And it was really threatening to bankrupt the utilities, which then they couldn't provide any power whatsoever. So the state legislature is starting to figure this out. But it's slow.
It's slow, but it doesn't mean it's not, we can't solve it.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a way to solve it, and every rooftop customer that I've talked to in our territory understands this issue. A lot of them didn't even know about this issue. So understanding it and then working and saying, of course, we're member owned, we pay what it costs to run the company. And, if you're trying to cut $60,000 each year out of overhead costs just because people are going to rooftop solar, that's a problem. So we have to appropriately staff. We need vehicles. We need to do all of this to run a good modern system that's reliable, affordable, where we're not shifting these costs. Especially these costs are going a lot to our lowest income members because they can't afford to put up solar. A lot of them don't have insulated houses, so they're high energy users already. A lot of this is creating a burden on our lower income population. Our islands are small, but we have almost every range of the socioeconomic scale represented in our cooperative territory. this, whatever we do going forward has to be affordable. It has to be sustainable, it has to be reliable. All three of these have to be met. And solar is one of those areas where it's really changing the affordability dynamics in a way that is really unsustainable for our lowest income populations. So this is, we're starting to talk about it, we're modeling, we're looking at how do we address this? How do we understand that the co-op provides a lot of service that maybe can't be represented by kilowatt hour charge? So,
Especially with the capital improvement projects that we have coming up in the next 2 or 3 years.
yeah, so if your rooftop solar and rates go up, wouldn't you expect to pay part of that cable replacement on your bill? If everybody's paying for it, it's benefiting everyone should be paying for it. And that's how it's not about unfairly penalizing or shifting costs, it's about equalizing costs and finding an equitable way for everyone that's part of the system, everyone that benefits from the system, paying an equitable share to maintain the system, build the system, and move the system forward. So everything that we're doing at Fox Mountains Electric and Fox Mountains Wind focuses specifically not just where we are now, but what challenges we have and how do we address those challenges and the challenges of planning for the future. So this is a very high level, fast, drinking from a fire hose a little bit presentation. I'm just going to wrap up saying that we are going to be back and be talking about more of these issues at the annual meeting on July 15th. And then it might be August 20th. It might actually be August 19th too, because I heard nothing goes on here on Monday night. So that might be a way to get more people here if I don't have to compete with the pub quiz. So this date might change a little bit. It might be Monday, it might be Tuesday, but I'm going to talk to Jackie, get that all sorted out this week so we can get it on the schedule. And this is part of an ongoing conversation. I don't have all the answers now, but I know that we're working towards getting them. Because I know what we want is a sustainable, resilient, affordable grid for all of our customers. And I just thank you for being here today, being part of this conversation. And here's to a better tomorrow. So thank you very much.